So when I'm having a conversation with a gentleman and saying, well, she doesn't cook, I said, but do y'all eat? How important is her cooking? If that's something that you really want, create it. Let's have a night where she cooks or something like that. You guys find a recipe, make it fun, but don't make it non-negotiable that you don't cook, right? Because maybe that's not what she does. If she's working all day, the same amount of hours you are, you guys got to figure that part out. The brain process is a 5 to 1. When you say 5 to 1, for every criticism, there needs to be 5 different things that we appreciate about the person. And I see that in a lot of couples where they want to be right more than agree. They want to talk themselves out of the solution because they need to be heard. Well, I'm going to quote my wife. It's okay to be thirsty, just don't be parched. Because you can drink when you're thirsty, you just take a drink. You can choose what you want. When you're parched, you drink anything. Like when I was reading my vows, I started crying. I was like, thank you for allowing me to show my son what a husband looks like. And I said, I'm tired of getting into all these debates.
Yeah.
I'm tired of seeing them. And I just said to myself, everybody is right, but do I agree with it? It's simple. No. Why am I beefing with their experience?
Hey guys, welcome back to Real Love Scenario. Shout out to all our real lovers out there. We want you guys to join the gang. I know it's somebody's probably second time watching the video, right?
Yeah.
You've seen us before. Now it's your second time because you see we got an amazing guest here and you still ain't subscribed.
That's crazy about you. We don't like that. We don't like that. And we want to be honest and transparent because that's what you're supposed to do. This is effective communication.
It is.
We don't like it that you haven't locked in with us. So what are you waiting for? You can pause the video right now and hit subscribe and then come right on back.
We're all about building healthy relationships here.
Yes,
and this is a relationship. Join the gang. Join the gang. But as I said, we have a special guest here today. Rhonda, you want to introduce who we have here?
I do. You always know we got a guest because we're sitting next to each other.
Yes.
I'm so excited to have this man on our couch today. And yes, I had to lean in with we have a man on our couch today because y'all know I love hearing from men. I love talking to men. I love understanding their minds. And so I'm so honored to introduce, you know what we got to do? We got to do the count. You ready?
Okay.
The count it down. Okay. So we have a psychotherapist, author, father, husband, founder of a mental health group for young men. Come on.
Doing the Lord's work.
Doing the good Lord's work. Welcome, Bashea Williams, to the couch today.
Thank you for having me. I'm
excited. You for being here.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here. Well, we just talked about it a little bit earlier. We know the streets are crazy now.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Ron and I were talking about this earlier. My journey into my relationship was pretty easy and simple. It was I made the commitment, met my wife 3 months later, and it was easy. So it's hard for me sometimes to give dating advice especially now, because I'm I don't know what y'all out there doing. It's crazy out here.
Yeah,
man. Yeah. So I'm excited to talk about that and, get into the relationship stuff too and learn more about you. So I'm glad that you're here.
Yes. Listen, I'm going to jump right in and kind of start with what you do outside of just existing, because I think we clearly described what you do for a living. You're a psychotherapist, you're a licensed social worker. These are things that you do to help people, but this is what you do to make money. And then the other side of who you truly are, a father, a husband, a man existing in this world. But I want to jump into what you do. What led you to get into the mental health space as a profession?
I think growing up in low income communities, right? You experience a lot of different things. You see a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So I'm from the Bronx, so that neighborhood was a lot going on.
A little challenging.
Right? And then we moved to Virginia. In Virginia, we even lived in a low income community there. My mother was the property manager, and then she got offered a job in Maryland to be the property manager. But the problem was that we had to live on site. And nobody wanted to live on site as a property manager because of all the crime.
Don't we know all about it? That's how we met.
We were in property
management.
Okay. Yeah. So we were thrusted into this community, which felt like home to me because I'm used to it. But it was a lot of violence. It was a lot of drugs. It was a trailer park behind. So all those different things were happening at the same time. Yeah. And at one time, a social worker came into the community and held groups for us young Black boys. So I used to sit in the back of the thing with my hood on, just not engaging, just can't wait to get out here. But he used to always call me up, help facilitate. So I started to see the impact around my peers. So I was like, okay, it's something different that maybe look into later on in life. But then I found out that, I heard that social workers don't make money. So it's like, nah, that ain't it. That's not it. I'm not going to go into the field. But I saw a lot of mental illness inside the community. I saw a lot of mental illness inside my family. I also saw broken families, right? Infidelity in the family, a lot of single mother households, a lot of boys without support. So I said, I needed something, so let me become that. And once I got into school and I took a class, it was like a marriage class. I was like, oh, I want to study to help families, to help marriages, to help relationships. And I was realizing I was trying to save my mother's and my sister in my own relationships in the mental health field, right? Trying to be that counselor, trying to be that man, that superhero, Captain Save 'em, what we call him. That's how I was choosing my relationships.
Wow, that's huge what you just said there.
Do you feel like going into that field that you can learn, I guess, the skills needed to be successful at that in school? Or because the way I'm thinking is that when it comes to people that you get advice from or people who lead in this space, there's a certain level of processing that they're able to do in articulating the thoughts and what people are feeling that makes them successful in that space. So it's the one side of learning like the science, the knowledge, the understanding, but then also being able to process everything, not only what you learn, what they're telling you, they're going through, and then be able to articulate it into a way that they can actually receive it. Do you feel like that's just something that somebody has just within them, or that's something that you kind of learn throughout your studies?
I think it's both, because a lot of times when you hear information, you hear guidance and advice, it's general.
Yeah.
And you can't apply the same thing to everyone.
Yeah.
So when we go to school, we learn different things about different people, different way that we process, different way that we learn, different way that we absorb. We learn about different communities and understanding how the brain works, right? How the body responds to the brain that we really don't know. That's a whole different level of understanding. And so now when somebody sits in front of me, I'm not using a general thing that I got from a book. I'm also not using a general statement that I learned in my own experiences.
Yeah.
There's a collaboration and an understanding of the persons and their challenges.
That I mean, that makes total sense. And you know, I think about how hard it has to be to listen to people's stories, because they can be very heavy. And I know my own journey with therapy, and I was very hesitant when I first started it. But then when I got maybe into the first session, I remember being like, I'm going to here and I'm going to lay all of this on this person who is still a person, right? You signed up for the job, but it has to be very weighty to take on so much and listen to so much. How do you balance not taking on the heaviness of people's lives, relationships, stories? Do you yourself, I assume you do, but do you yourself have a therapist in your life that helps balance that out for you?
Yeah, originally I was thinking that I can go and save every relationship and every person, every little black boy, black man that had a challenge.
Yeah.
That simply wasn't true, and I experienced a lot of burnout. So what I had to do was create a self-care day. So Monday is my self-care day. Nobody has access to me on Monday.
Yeah.
Literally, if you call my answer machine right now, it says, if you leave a message, if it's on Monday, I won't get back to you till 24 hours, and that starts on Tuesday. Like, I'm unavailable. My family knows, but don't call me on Monday. My friends know. It's interesting because sometimes I don't honor my own Monday.
Yeah.
And they'll check me. It's like, this
It's
your
your
Monday.
Monday.
Like,
Yeah.
relax, get off the phone, make sure you're chilling, do whatever you need to do on your Monday.
Yeah.
So I've created a lot of boundaries around that so I don't fall into that trap of being burnt out so much.
Yeah.
Did you internalize that? Like you said that you felt like you could save everybody. Was there a moment to where you felt like you were failing, like your clients or people, if they didn't find that breakthrough or that solution? Like, were you internalizing that and putting that all on yourself, and you felt like it was weighing you down, or you were able to separate?
I was able to separate
Okay.
a lot of the clients because I learned that early. And when I worked for a therapeutic camp, when I was like 18 or 19, my mentor had me work at a therapeutic camp, and I saw the process because you see little boys and stuff like that. I want to adopt him. Like, okay, just give you 2 weeks, right? And I just looked at my responses and my interactions with kids and stuff like that, and I know I needed to create some type of boundaries, but I think it was harder for me to not internalize failures of relationships, my personal relationships.
Got you. No, that makes sense. And I want to get into, knowing that you talk to a whole bunch of people. I want you to tell on your clients. You ain't got to get no names or something like that.
HIPAA, we understand.
We're not going to do that. But just getting some insight into the different people that you have talked to over the years. So a lot of conversations that we have are about men and the way that men think and how men view things in the world today. And I know we have a lot of viewers who are women and listeners who are women who are always trying to take a peek, as Rhonda said, to the mind of a man.
Yes.
So one of the questions that I have that I've been noticing, because I talk to a lot of men as well doing everything that we're doing, is do you think that men's, the way that they grew up, the family dynamic and the relationship structure that they saw growing up, how do you think that contributes to how they see their wife in their life as they become adults and they become men? Because I think some men that I talk to are sometimes confused, or they don't know how to approach the situation or have certain conversations, because maybe growing up they saw their auntie, their mom, their grandmother as the homemaker, at home, cooking, cleaning, taking care of the kids. And now when they enter adulthood as a man and they're looking for a wife, and they see a woman who's like, yeah, I don't cook, or like, I ain't cleaning, we got hire cleaners, like, that's not what I do. I gotta go to work, like, and I got this and I got that. And in his mind, it's like, I mean, you seem like a good person, but you ain't doing the wifely things. Like, this is what a wife is supposed to be. And they can't differentiate what they saw versus what they're interacting with now in today's day and age. So do you feel like there is that correlation from people that you talk to, and how do they like navigate through that, dealing with women, how they're operating today?
Absolutely. And we have a lot of conversations between the difference between a caretaker and a wife, right? A partner.
Oh.
When you grew up and you watch your mom, auntie, whoever do everything, maybe dad wasn't there, or maybe he was there and that was just their dynamic.
Yeah.
A lot of times parents don't explain their dynamics to the kids, and the kids are just viewing and just creating a story of how life should be. Meanwhile, when the door closed, there's a whole different discussion that we're not privy to that information.
Yeah.
So when I'm having a conversation with a gentleman and saying, well, she doesn't cook, I said, but do y'all eat? How important is her cooking? If that's something that you really want, create it, right? What does it look like? Let's have a night where she cooks or something like that. You guys find a recipe, make it fun, but don't make it a non-negotiable that you don't cook, right? Because maybe that's not what she does. If she's working all day, the same amount of hours you are, you guys got to figure that part out. Yeah. Like, what are her expectations of you? Like, what did she learn? What does she want from you?
Yeah.
So we got to have deeper conversations, and then a lot of things are surface level because we don't go underneath of our beliefs, our systems, and what we created in our head before we get into a relationship.
That is, man.
Let me tell y'all missed what he said, and it applies not only to relationships but social media, everything you said too. Because I think basically you're talking about as kids, when we're looking at our parents, a lot of us are drawing conclusions without having all the details.
That's right.
And we do that not only, I didn't even think about that as a kid looking at your parents. And, if you have a healthy display of love in your life and you see your parents, and that could be a good thing, but that also applies to our world today. People looking on social media, seeing people idolizing all these things. And it's
relationship goals.
Y'all drawing all these conclusions about people and don't know the details at all.
Not at all.
Snapshots, highlight reels.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
and we get addicted to it. And we want that.
I even thought about it. And sorry, I know you're about to say something, but I was looking at social media and I'm like, dang, like, even those people who are getting divorces and they do break up, when it comes to like social media, you see they were together and then they're not together anymore. It's like, yeah, even though I now know they're divorced and I knew they were married before, I never saw any of the bad on social media because nobody highlights that.
No.
Nobody highlights that.
And in fact, when people do highlight it, we then try to reject that. Like, you need to keep some stuff to yourself. It's like, but you weren't saying that when they were showing the positive and the fun and the trips and the, I bought you this for having a baby.
Very interesting.
No one was like, you shouldn't show us that. It's like when you start showing the the full picture, the total picture, it gets very complicated for people. But that's what happens when you doing things for an audience. Like, you cannot please everyone.
No.
But I want to go back to what you said about like not going beneath the surface. I think that is something that keeps us apart so much today in relationships and dating dynamics, that we really kind of create these lists, which I personally don't think anything's wrong with having an understanding of like what you're looking for and who that person should be to you in theory. But I don't think we do that deep diving and like really trying to understand what truly matters. Like you said, what matters is that you eat, not so much that she cooked it. Now I get it, because I'm a person that loves to cook and I would love to be cooked for. But am I really going to make that something where I'm like, if this doesn't happen, I can't have a life with this human being? Like, that's to me very, very dramatic. And but it's little stuff like that keeps us apart. I want to know, like, what do you think are maybe some good entryway questions to kind of get to the meat of it and not lean so much into the surface of trying to understand someone? And I would say more specifically men, like, what are some things that we can do as women to kind of go beneath the surface, some questions or just some conversation starters just to better understand a man?
Yeah, I think if even going back to the way that you asked me the question, right? Asking, what does marriage look like to you? Like, what does your role look like in a marriage, in a relationship? And talk about all the things that we avoid. We talk about the finances. We talk about when you're upset, what do you need? Like, how do you take care of yourself when you're upset? On your good day, how do you like to celebrate? To really get to understand a person, like what has been one of the hardest things that you've experienced, and how did you get out of it? Kind of like those interview questions that you get when you take when you go for a job, and also what was the hardest time in your life, and who did you need, who failed you, right? Because if you ask those questions, who failed you, right?
They make people uncomfortable. They start,
and
you
who
be
failed
like,
you?
damn.
Who failed you? Because that's also we have a lot of wounds from our childhood.
yeah, man.
You think about, oh, my dad failed me, or my mother failed me. So now that's going to pop up when a partner disappoints you. You remind me of that. Yeah. You know, so we got to deal with a lot of those wounds, but we got to be able to share them and talk about them.
Yeah.
I dealt with that. I remember my wife, when I first met her dad wasn't in her life at all. And the first time I met her, she was like, I don't got no daddy issues. That never affected me. I was like, man, I don't know about that. And then it was 5 years later to where she really had the epiphany and went to therapy, and it was revealed like, oh, this is how it's showing up in my life. Because I think that so many people, it's an issue because sometimes we see people in such a bad situation that we feel like, although we have trauma, that our trauma is just minor and it's not that big of a deal, because we see people who are really jacked up. So we're like, I can deal with this on myself. It's fine. I don't got to put that much. It's okay, because we see people who are really jacked up. But then I love relationships because I learned so much in my marriage. It was almost like putting a mirror up to myself to be like, oh, yo, you jacked up too, man. Because when you living on your own, you dictate everything. You can have somebody over if you want to. You cannot. You can go to dinner. You cannot. You can run away. You can. But when you're married and in a relationship, all that stuff kind of goes out the window. The running away, the not dealing with things because you're in this thing with somebody that you're committing to forever. And it really opened my eyes to what things I needed to work on as a man. And one thing that I think that we were kind of leading to in this conversation, which I think is so important, is like having a healthy expectation of what a relationship is. Because I feel like a lot of people do divorce and do, break up because they assume relationships are something that they're not. And then once they get into it, it is work. And they realize like, oh, this is not what I thought it would be. Do you see the same thing when you're talking to people, that they don't really, what they were expecting marriage to be is not what it actually is once they get into it?
Absolutely. It happens all the time. It happens in my marriage. The expectation,
so
like
honest.
I'm out the streets, right? So everything should be good. I got all the tools, right? I chose you, you chose me. But when you get into the thick of it, we're not choosing each other. We're choosing ourselves, right? And so that's why we're disconnected, right? That's when the dysfunction comes in, because we lose consideration. We go back into our selfish selves, right?
Ooh,
And
we
when
lose
I see that,
consideration.
yeah, we do.
No, it's
Because
so
everybody
true.
puts their chest out. It's like, no, this is about me at this particular moment.
Yeah.
really-
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I see that in a lot of couples where they want to be right more than agree. They want to talk themselves out of the solution because they need to be heard.
Yeah.
And I was like, we came to the solution. We came to the agreement. Yeah, but I want to make sure that I'm heard, and it takes us right out. We start the cycle all over. And that happens in a lot of conflict between couples and just people in general.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I do want to get into your marriage because I, know about your book, Dear Future Wife, and I know that you started writing that book many years before you met your wife. Under just trying to make sure that, one, you were spending time with the idea of like writing to this woman, sharing your most sacred thoughts to her about like what you were feeling, what you were hoping she was feeling, that you were thinking of her and praying for her. But fast forward, like 20 years, you meet your wife, and in the moment you didn't know that was your wife. It was like, this is a nice, beautiful woman, and
It was a
she's-
work relationship.
Yeah, it was
right?
like, this is branding, and she's cool. I mean, I'm sure your eyes saw that she was beautiful. She's beautiful. But I want to understand, like, when you said, because I watched you on Dear Future Wife, you talk about you just weren't ready. Like you weren't in the headspace to start dating right away. What did that look like for you? What did not ready mean for you? Was it fear? Was it frustration?
Probably, I don't know if it was fear. It was frustration. I was kind of coming out of some relationships that I was hoping that they would last, right? I think 2018 was I call it my year in the wilderness. Like, I was in this unhealthy relationship, a lot of relationship ambivalence, breaking up, getting back together, breaking up, getting back together. I was also in the same relationship with my job at the time. Do I want to quit? Do I want to start my practice? Do I want to completely go solo? They're preventing me from leaving. It was a whole bunch of different things happening at the same time. Then I had some challenges with family, some shady stuff with siblings. So all that was happening at one time.
The wilderness.
Yeah. So now, okay, I'm about to take this leap with my business. Ended the relationship. It ended unhealthy. It ended like all the other times it ended. And here I am just by myself. So I was like, let me take some time.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I started dating someone who I thought was good. They said everything right.
Yeah.
But things didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So stuff started to reveal, and I ended it in a healthy way. I just said, this is not working. But there was a lot of backlash from that. I was like, I did it the right way. I was honest.
Yeah.
Smear campaigns. It was
Wow.
ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
no.
And I had to just sit and be quiet.
Real wilderness.
Yeah.
Left a bad taste in your mouth too, probably.
No, but I kind of checked myself because I saw the behavior before
Okay.
and I saw it during. And so it was just like, this
Like
is the
you shouldn't have been shocked.
And my friends was like, you already know what's going on.
Yeah.
So when I met her, I didn't want to be in a relationship. I just said, I want to build my brand. I was literally saying I was going to be the modern day Paul of the Bible, giving out relationship advice as a single person.
Listen, Paul, if y'all don't know, Paul's intense. Like, basically, Paul was like, I mean, if you have to have sex, then you should get a wife. Essentially, he was like, if you got to, if you got to, but he was strong.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was there. I was going to practice some abstinence. I was just going to wait until I find. And at that time, when I said abstinence, it wasn't about finding a wife. It was just about keeping myself clear. And clean. And when we met, it started to transition from the business, and I expressed interest after someone else pointed something out to me, what she did for me. And I was just like, okay, let me consider her, because we're having a good time. Business is booming, and things are just going on. We're praying together. And on a professional level. We're still having fun, though, too. We're still going out. And I expressed interest, and she was like, no, you're not ready. And I was just like,
how you gonna tell me?
I'm not ready. She said, you need to heal from some stuff. And I was like, no, I don't. I spent my time in the wilderness. I'm good. But in reality, the person who I ended it with was still doing stuff in the background, and it revealed itself later. So it would have been messy if that timing would have happened. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna just wait until after my birthday. And she was like, well, I'm interested. And I was like, well, I got a birthday trip coming up. Me and my homie and two of my homegirls, we going on to Jamaica.
Yeah.
Have some fun.
Yeah. I was just like, no, I'm good. Like I'm chilling. This is gonna be my birthday of no responsibilities to anybody.
But you.
Right. That was it.
Yeah.
So I went with my best friends and we were just chilling.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of my best friends. I want to shout out because Unique and Aaron are my best friends. I just want to
hey, y'all.
But so we went and we just had a great time. When I came back, I was just like, yeah. I was on a plane. I was like, I'm going to call in baggage claim. It's like, meet me at Mastro's to dinner. I'm just fresh off the plane. And so I was just, at that point, I asked her, I was like, I would like to date you.
Wow.
And we talked about what that looked like. And I don't think a lot of people don't do that.
Look, you heard me say wow because they don't.
What does dating look like? Are we exclusive? Are we dating other people? We had like this serious conversations. It was like, no, we can date other people. You know, just when time is right, we get to know each other on that level. We've been having fun as friends, as business partners, but it takes a different level to get into that more intimate space.
Yeah.
I love that you asked that though, because
me too.
One thing that I'm realizing as I talk to more people when it comes to this relationship stuff is that everybody has different definitions for different things. And it's important to define things first, like what love means, what marriage means, what dating means, because everybody has their different viewpoint on what that is, their different definition. And sometimes people go into something thinking they both have the same definition of something.
And have the absolute opposite of definition.
Opposite. And then that's what causes the issue is that, we never actually defined this because we just assumed that we both knew or both agreed on what this actually meant.
Right.
Yeah. I love that you very specifically asked her or like not told her, but you asked her like, I would like to date you, almost in a way of like asking for permission to move into this next step. I think that's another thing that, at least I know in my own experience, sometimes you ever just feel like you fell into a relationship, like you don't remember this transition of like, we were kicking it and now we're like together and we never had those important conversations. I do want to talk about, again, as a woman, and I think I'm probably very similar to your wife in the sense of like, once I know that I like someone or they're showing up for me in a way that makes me feel comfortable enough to support them, how the thing that she did for you, which was like, you didn't want to read this book. And she's like, I want you to read this book so bad that I'm going to read this book for you. I'm going to read this book to you. And I know like sometimes in dating, and y'all weren't even dating at that time, y'all were just in a business relationship and friends, that certain behaviors that can gloss over the man, like it kind of glossed over you when she did it. You were like, oh, she just was being nice.
She getting paid to do
cool.
this.
Yeah, like she looking out for me, and someone else is telling you like, dog,
wake up, hey.
Nah, that's like a big deal. And I think about this again, this scariness of dating sometimes, where you want to lean in when you see something in someone that they can't see in themselves, when you want to support them and encourage them in a way that they can't do for themselves, but you're also trying to balance not looking pressed or thirsty. What is your advice for a woman that's like that? Because you married a woman, you ultimately fell in love with and married a woman who was showing you, even though telling you all at the same time you're not ready, she was making it very clear to you that like, I am here for you and I want to do this with you and I will wait and support you until you get to where I am with it. What can you say to women who are like that need that kind of encouragement to keep going and keep pushing with a man who seems right, but it's just some stuff that's a little off in the process? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to quote my wife because you said thirsty, right? And her quote that everybody loves is, and I got to give her credit, it's okay to be thirsty, just don't be parched. And she said, because you can drink when you're thirsty, you just take a drink. You can choose what you want. When you're parched, you drink anything.
Yeah, so true.
So I have the conversation. And when you say that I am here for you, she made it very clear. And what's interesting, somebody sent me the audiobook that I dated years before the audiobook of the same book.
Yeah.
I wasn't interested, right? I wasn't going to listen to another man, a book that I'm not interested in, and listen to a man that I don't know, and then listen to that book, right?
Yeah.
When she did that, and she was like, because she also talked to me prior to that in the recording, Bashea, I really want you to pay attention to this. This is something that I think that will help and elevate you in this part of your business. So please listen to this chapter in the recording.
Yeah.
So there was that part, right? It shows the interest, it shows the investment. But she was also very clear about that.
Yeah.
Look, I am here for you, but let me know how much you need me to be here for you. Right?
Yeah,
I don't want to overstep boundaries. I don't want to do too much, make you uncomfortable. But I am here for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that she did that. And we talk about effective or good communication all the time. And I always say that like good communication is effective communication, and effective communication is the person actually receiving what you're trying to say. Like if they didn't receive it, then you have to figure out another way to try to communicate it. And I love, because that's the work in relationships, trying to learn your person to figure out how they're going to receive the things that you have to give to them. So she tried to do it one way one time, tried to do it another way, tried to do it another way. But then as she was learning you, she found an effective way for you to receive it. And I think that's so important. But going back into your journey, you said that you were abstinent. Was that a spiritual decision?
Yeah, it was spiritual, it was emotional, it was physical, psychological. It was the whole thing.
It was all of it.
Right, it was all of it. It was just like, I got tired of going into these empty relationships, empty connections. I got tired of the results of them. So I said, I'm just going to keep myself clean and chill. I'm going to work out and get back in shape, and I'm not going to have any drama. Nobody's going to have access to me in that way. I just got tired of those conversations.
Got you. So the reason I asked that is because that was my experience as well. I waited for marriage 3 years actually because of COVID, and we were living together and all that stuff. And people were like, I don't know how y'all did that, but we did it. But my thing was spiritual.
People.
Yeah, she was. Rhonda knew me prior to, so she had a valid reason for being like, I don't know, if you're doing this. But I made that decision because first in my life, I felt like anytime God said to do something, anytime I did it that way, it turned out better for me in my life. And then I knew that this was going to be one of the most important decisions of my life, like to find the woman who's going to be the mother of my kids, who I will spend the rest of my life with, and who will be the biggest influence in my life. So I wanted to approach that with like a sober mindset. You know what I mean? But for me, I made the decision. 3 months later, my now wife texted me, was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, it's Bree from Cleveland. I'm moving to DC where I live. I would love to have dinner. And that led to us dating, and that was the relationship. That's who I'm married with now. So my journey, I ain't gonna say I struggled when I was ready to hang it up.
Struggle.
When I was ready to hang it up, I hung it up. But and it was easy for me to get into a relationship. Now I can give some great relationship advice because we went through a lot through that. But I say that all to say is that so many people ask for dating advice. What do I do? How do I, and I know my journey, the spiritual and divine was intertwined into that. And when I talked to my parents and how they met, same thing. I talked to a lot of my friends, same thing. And now that you're saying this, you're like, that was part of that. You and your wife talk about, praying, affirmation, like all these different things that you do. So when you're actually advising people from a professional standpoint, do you intertwine that divine in there? Because I feel like sometimes when you talk about that, people feel like it's like this magical thing that it's like,
it's not tangible.
It's not tangible. Like I can't, like, I'm just supposed to do this and wait and like hope, Do you put that into the advice or the counsel that you're giving? Or are you just more like, all right, technically do this, here are some tools, try this. Like, how do you differentiate between the two, knowing your personal experience of having that spirituality be a part of your relationship?
I think the first thing I do is understand where they are spiritually.
Gotcha.
Right. If they don't have a spiritual connection, then I can't force them to connect to it. Right. With people who, when they talk about that, yes, we do. Because a lot of, especially our people, we have a spiritual connection.
For sure.
We have a spiritual foundation. So we always incorporate that. And just to piggyback off of you, I remember many failed times of trying to be abstinent. I had a whole abstinent group on Facebook that I had to leave. I started the group and I left because I started dating somebody who said they wanted to participate in abstinence, but then
not so much.
Yeah. So, and I wasn't strong enough to say no.
No.
So there was a couple times that happened, but prior to that, when I made the decision, and she was already on that as well, it was easy for us to just follow.
Yeah.
Right. So we had a lot of different things that were aligned that made sure that I wasn't going to mess up this opportunity to find my wife.
Yeah.
Because you get tired of having those conversations with God. Forgive me. Like,
I'm sorry. I'm not promised if you just get me through this one.
Right. This is gonna be my wife. That's why I'm doing it. Like all types of stuff. You think you fooling God. But when I talk to men or I talk to clients and we talk about the spiritual aspect of relationship, not just relationship with another person, but themselves and with God, then it's important to incorporate that. Like, what does your daily practice look like?
Yeah.
Like, how much do you incorporate that before you make a decision? What does your sleep hygiene, your sleep routine include? Does it include praying? Does it include writing down affirmations? Does it include scripture? Does it include watching different videes or sermons? Or what does that look like? Absolutely.
You know, I look at you guys, and I've watched you from afar, and am certainly inspired by your love story, and in part because, and I don't know your exact age or her exact age, but I know that you found love in what people would call a little later in life. You had older children, so you had been in prior relationships. That is such an inspiration for someone who is older, looking to find or have love. What would you say is like the greatest joy of your marriage or your relationship? And can you emphatically say that it was really like worth the wait?
Oh, that's the greatest joy. I think it's a couple of different things. The first thing that typically pops up is being able to show my son a healthy marriage. Right? Yeah. That is one of the important things. And like when I was reading my vows, I started crying. I was like, thank you for allowing me to show my son what a husband looks like. Right? That was the next thing on the list that I needed to show him. Yeah. That was important. But also alignment and just being able to pray and connect when times are hard and times are good. Yeah. Right? Like we cheerlead for each other. Like there's no competition when somebody wins something. Yeah. Like this is the first relationship that if I got an award, she's celebrating.
We got an award.
Right. Yeah. She's celebrating and then I'm celebrating her. Like when I get something, I want to make her feel like she got it too. So we just went to Mexico because I got something. I was like, let's go to Mexico. Yeah. Like, let me take something off your plate. It's just being able to serve each other. Like that's one of the most amazing things. Like I get something and come home, there's balloons and a cake and champagne and you know brunch. It's just like just for little things,
just for nothing, as we say. But that's when you know it is happy and healthy, when you just want to celebrate the big and the little stuff. You just want to celebrate the fact that I got you. Right. I'm just happy to be here, and I'm going to show you that I'm very happy to be here. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I agree. Being a married man, that's awesome. Like. Both things that you said, because I remember my mom and dad were divorced ever since I could remember. And it wasn't until, it's interesting how God works, because I don't know, my dad died when I was 16. And my dad was in my life, even though my parents were together. Like my mom, dad, my family tribe is amazing because my dad and mom were cordial. My dad used to come over to my grandmother's house, which was my mom's house, for cookouts and everything, even though they were divorced. So I saw my dad every single day up until his passing. But when my stepdad came, who was also a great man, I don't know if I would have been able to receive everything he had to give me, especially now being in the home as a man. If my dad was still there. And I know that kind of sounds messed up, but I think it worked in a way that made sense to help my growth, because seeing my stepdad in the home with my mom changed my whole perspective on relationships, how it works, what a healthy relationship looked like. I saw my stepdad lead in his relationship being unemployed for 2 or 3 years. Like, seeing that dynamic changed my perspective on relationships. And I meet some men who are like, marriage, like, I don't even know what that is. Like, I talk to a girl, she wants it, and I'm not against it, but I don't get it. Like, what is it? And the second part, which was a great question that Rhonda asked, you talk about, was kind of like the value that you get, the joy that you get from marriage. Do you feel like a lot of men that you talk to truly understand the benefits and the value of marriage and being in partnership with somebody, or do you see it like some men see it as like the old ball and chain, like, you know, I'm just doing this because I have to?
Yeah, I mean, I see both, of course.
Yeah.
Well, all of it. The values and the benefits, they don't really understand it because we live in a very independent society.
Yeah.
So the idea that I have to share something at all times is scary. It means somebody's taken away. We don't see that it's really, if I'm sharing, they're sharing as well.
Yeah.
So we're pouring into a pot, and the pot is bigger because we have more. And I think if we were to really become less selfish and less self-centered, we would have better relationships, and we have understanding. We'll be open to the opportunity of growth, right? If I have, because I can't do it all by myself.
No.
As much as I've accomplished in my single life, I've accomplished 10 times more with my partner, with my wife. Right? So we got a major contract 2 years ago, and I could not have managed that thing by myself. Like, I had 30 clinicians working for me.
Jesus.
Wow.
We were serving over 3,000 African Americans, providing therapy for free for them for 2 years.
The Lord's work.
That's it.
Right?
Good
I could not
God.
manage all
I hope
that.
y'all home clapping, because that I was literally about to be like, yes, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's amazing. And that's,
Lord.
I get that. Like, I feel the same way about my wife. I tell people I would not be sitting here doing what I'm doing, none of that without her.
Yeah.
Like, the value that she's added to my life in so many different ways, in my personal growth and healing, but also just professionally. Like I said, I would not be here. Like, we started our business together. We moved very quickly. We got, we met, moved in together after 3 months and started a business together, and did that full time for 6 years. But it was really her knowledge, her experience that helped me to build my brand and helped me to get into all the different rooms and things that I was doing. And now, you know, I have the knowledge and I'm able to do these things on my own. But I tell people, like, marriage is great, man. Like, even if I see somebody, like, I ain't blind, oh, you look good, but to me, it ain't worth it. Like, I ain't jacking up my whole situation for this. And she done held me down in so many ways. It's just not worth it. Like,
Yeah. And well, what do you do in your life outside of your work, just in your day to day? Because clearly we can amplify the message through our various platforms. You have a platform. So many people do, and we shared this information hopefully to widespread the importance and the beauty and the benefits and the value adds of being in partnership. But what do you do on a day to day, like amongst maybe your guy friends or young men, like you talked about? And I do want to talk more about your son, because I've heard you speak about him in such a beautiful way. So I want to get into that. But what are you doing on more of a micro level to encourage? Because I think, again, as a woman, we feel, whether we're right or wrong about it, we feel that so many men don't want it, that they don't understand the benefits and beauty of it, and we're having to campaign for it. What are you doing on the smaller levels to encourage, to say, listen, man, like, this is it's lit, it's really, really great, you should do it?
A lot of people call me, a lot of my friends call me the single ones, the ones that say they want a relationship, and then they'll call me the next week, man, I don't want no relationship. So we have a lot of conversations, just guys talk. They come over to the house, or we just go somewhere and we just talk. Like, we have serious conversations.
Yeah.
I have a prayer call with two of my homeboys every morning. We read this 3-minute devotional. We spend about 3 minutes. We probably talk for about 30 minutes. We spend 3 minutes on God. The rest of the 27 minutes, we just joking and just talking about life, marriage, and just fun, whatever that is. But also just being an example. And I think actions speak louder than words, because people are really watching.
Yes.
They're watching how much fun you're having. But on our platform, we don't always talk about the good times.
Yeah.
We talk about the struggles because we want people to see the real part of it. And we talk about how we come up with solutions. We have a therapist. We had therapy yesterday. Was arguing in it. So It happens.
It's real.
For sure.
It happens, and
It's
the therapist always tells me, stop trying to be the therapist in your marriage, and I do.
I bet that is so hard to not do.
No, because sometimes I'm like, I don't want to make the right decision.
Yeah.
And I got to be okay with that. I know consequences come with that.
Yeah.
But it's part of life. Like, I'm not always going to be perfect and always have the right solution.
I love that you said that, because we always talk about that as like, and it makes more sense coming from a therapist that you can't be your partner's therapist, right?
Yeah.
It's just too hard. Like, you're getting all the raw emotions, your biases, everything. It's hard to give. I mean, you want to be able to give advice, and if they ask for it, be able to give guidance or your input or your perspective, but taking your partner's, all their raw emotions, all their raw feelings, trying to process that with your own feelings, it's hard to objectively sometimes like say something or give some good guidance, because it's like you're too much into the weeds.
Yeah, because if I became the therapist in a relationship, I would have no emotions.
Ooh.
No emotions.
That's true.
I wouldn't feel anything.
Yeah.
So
because that's what the work requires you to do.
Right, to disconnect
Yeah.
and not be emotionally connected to what's happening with you at this particular time. So if you're upset, okay, what makes you upset? So, and then I'm not even talking about my behaviors, because it's not about me in therapy.
It's even down to the body language and everything. Okay, so
You know,
tell me what makes
too?
you upset.
It's because like I tried to do that because I'm very calm. I'm very level headed. My wife's a firecracker. But it's balanced, yin and yang. But if I were to talk to her like that, like I have sometimes, like in the beginning of our relationship, she used to be like, "Why are you so calm? You need to like," because I could imagine talking to somebody like that. It's like, why are you thinking that? They would feel like that's condescending, or they'd be like,
doctor.
right.
"If you don't stop."
And I'm using the clinical language.
Yeah.
It's just so dismissive. Like it just not would. It would not work.
It would not work at all.
Yeah.
And look, so talking about your son, I adore the fact that was one of the things that you said is one of your greatest joys, that you can show him not just a 2-parent household, not just people married. You very specifically use the adjectives a happy and healthy marriage.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people think we just need to be together. We just need to stay together, whether it's happy and healthy or not.
Right.
We just need to show them that two people can stay together, that's not the case. And we're learning that more and more now. But I saw that you talked about how you would write to him when he was born. You know, you would start to write letters to him and lessons to him. Tell me like what some of those things were. And I believe that some were about love. What were some of the things that you wanted him to learn about love before you had the pleasure to show him a happy, healthy marriage?
So that's, like you said, I started in college because I got a scholarship to go get my master's, and his mother was pregnant, and so it was a 1-year program, and I want to get this degree and come back so I can provide, right? And at that time, I thought that was going to be the relationship. It didn't work out.
Yeah.
Whenever I felt something, whenever I felt God download a message that I wish I would have had, I wrote it to him, like as a father. Like, God told me to tell you that you are valuable because of this, not because of what society says, right? God told me to tell you to be more communicative when you feel hurt, right? To share your emotions, to find ways to pour into yourself and not just have to save the world. It was different messages all the time. Whatever popped in my head, if I felt like I did something wrong, God told you to tell me not. God told me to tell you not to make this decision because this is the result of making that poor decision.
Yeah.
That's
the next book.
No, the next
keeping
book,
that one in.
Yeah. That's something I'm gonna give to him.
Gotcha.
And because I also had all of my classmates wish him a happy birthday when it's his first birthday. So I'm going to give that to him at one time.
That's dope. I was just going to say, have you shared any of the writings with him yet?
We talked it out,
yeah,
but I haven't let him see it.
Like actually see it. Wow, that's going to be so beautiful. Oh my goodness, like adore, because you need to hear it from your father, but you also just need to hear it man to man, regardless of what the dynamic is. I think it's clearly chiefly important that he hears it from you first, and that he you're the example to him. But I do think man to man, just I hope that so many men are watching and that the women who are watching will share it with a man in their lives, the importance of being honest about your feelings. This is just the things that you shared to him. God told me to tell you that when you are hurt, that you communicate that. That was something that we, in preparing for this discussion today, like want to talk about, like how the double standard, and I'm gonna let you introduce the question, but the double standards that are created that don't allow men to do that just don't allow men to do that.
Yeah, I wrote it down. I'm like, I don't
because it's such
words.
an important topic, and I love that you started doing it as a young man, as a very young man.
Yeah, so my question was, do you think men struggle with the double standard of dating, and do you think that some men like subconsciously resent women for that? And I know it's a little bit of a deeper question, but I'm glad that we're sitting here with you because I know you dive into relationship stuff all the time. And sometimes I'm sure probably like me, you get something or you see something, and then over time you're just processing it and trying to figure out like what that thing actually is or how people are responding to it. And I talk to a lot of men all the time and hear what they're saying. And it seems like they are affected sometimes by the double standard of dating. Earlier, and I had Rhonda laughing because we had an episode to where it was talking about homosexuals. So like, a man is sitting in this crib, don't have enough to support himself. So he living off this woman, sitting in the house, ain't doing nothing, ain't contributing. And then she laughed because I was like,
Sounds like a girlfriend to me.
Sounds like a girlfriend to me. And it was a joke because it's like, if that was the opposite way, right? Then that's a good man. Look at him taking care of her. He is so supportive. And that we see that in so many different dynamics, and even in more serious things, like men don't feel as protected. So like even something like sexual assault, right? If I'm 15 years old and a teacher molests a 15-year-old, then it's like, you kind of lived out the fantasy of like a young boy and you got to, but if it's the opposite way and a man did that to a woman, now everybody is coming to her defense. That's wrong. And it's like in so many different ways. From the minute I talk to, they feel that double standard of like, in certain situations, we aren't protected to where men are protected. And I wonder if that subconsciously manifests itself sometimes when men are going out and talking to women and trying to, find their wife, that they have that in the back of their mind somehow.
Absolutely. It impacts, especially as much as we see it on social media.
Yeah.
Like that's all you see. The same argument, right? The girlfriend, that's a girlfriend. That's what it's supposed to be. But I think society has changed a lot, right? Women have become more successful and the expectations have changed. But we haven't had the conversation about it. Life is changing, career is changing, money is changing, dynamics are changing, but we're having the same conversation.
Yeah, so that's
we haven't
the thing.
changed the conversation.
That's the thing that the men I talk to, they feel, and this is candid conversations here. We trying to be constructive on both sides. So we have a lot of women listeners, but they feel.
Don't beat Dre up, y'all.
Yeah, don't beat me
up. Let him
up.
say what he needs to say.
I'm married. I'm out the game. I'm just saying that. It's like this. You can play both sides now, right? It's like, okay, when you, let me say how somebody articulated to me. Basically, you can be a woman when it's convenient for you, but then at other times you don't want to be. So it's like, this is not, domestic abuse is not okay in any way, but like you hit a man, punch him. The moment he hits you, then it's like, I'm a woman, right? Or if a man and a woman are going out to eat, it's like, I'm expected to pay all the time. And if you do it, it's just like, it's his birthday or look at me treating him. But then it's like, when it comes to the household responsibilities, it's like, I'm a professional woman. I can't cook. I can't do this. I can't do that because I'm so busy. But I don't want to go half on rent. I'm a woman. I shouldn't have to pay for that. Or I shouldn't have to pay for your meal because I'm a woman. So the men that I talk to, sometimes they feel frustrated of the double standard. Like, you can hop in and out of both sides when you feel like it's convenient for you. And like I said, I think that leads to some resentment that when some men do get the money, the power and everything, like the level of respect sometimes that they have for women isn't necessarily there.
Yeah.
Do you see that at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And what the problem is, we get so offended, and I know you said don't beat up Dre for this. It's like we get offended by things that don't really pertain to us. Like so many people personalize what other people have to say.
Yeah.
Like if somebody didn't agree with you, then that's it. It's a I
just
don't
don't
agree.
agree.
That's it.
Yeah.
I
That's
don't
okay.
need to personalize it. And the same thing with a relationship. If you are dating a woman or a man who doesn't have the same values, doesn't have the same beliefs,
That's okay.
I'm not going to get offended by
Yeah.
that we're just not on the same page.
Yeah.
And so we get caught up in the wrong things because, again, that's the resentment, that's the wounds, and that's the experiences. And sometimes it's not even our wounds, it's our friends' wounds. It's what we
our
saw
mom's
somebody else go
wounds.
through, moms, uncles, aunts, whatever. And we take that on as like it's our experience when it's really not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you meet somebody that says, this is what it looks like, we go back to the first question. This is what it looks like when in a relationship that I would feel valued, that I would like, that I would contribute to. How about you? Well, I believe this. Okay, well, I hope you find that. Right? If not,
it's just
okay,
not
let's work on
aligned
that.
with me.
What are you flexible with?
Yeah.
Right? What does it look like in partnership with me?
Yeah.
That is, I mean, that's such a simple way, but that is what I love about it is that, again, we were talking before we started taping about things have now become so incredibly complex when they can really just be as simple as that's your thought on it. This is my thought on it. We can either determine if we're flexible in our thoughts, and if we're not, then like you said, it's nice meeting you. I hope that you find someone or something that aligns with that, and we don't have to fight it out and duke it down, and we don't have to force whatever you think the standard is. Like if you do want a woman that is balanced, that can work all day but also wants to come home and do certain things, she exists. Plenty of them do. They exist. It's no need for you to find one who doesn't do that and then browbeat her about it, and vice versa with a woman. If you really want a man to do what are the traditional societal teachings that, you know, this is what a man does, and then you meet someone who sees that differently, you meet a man that, like, perhaps that's just not your person. And you don't have to fight about it and twist and turn and push them into trying to be that, because all it will lead to is resentment and frustration and performative behaviors that will ultimately fall away, because you cannot keep up with the performance. It will eventually. I could maybe give you good 5 years of this, paying all the bills and holding everything down, but I don't actually want to do that. And so it's going to stop. I'm going to eventually grow quite tired of doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
And like you said, simple. Like I got kind of like a simple mindset when it came to that at a certain point. And I said, I'm tired of getting into all these debates.
Yeah.
I'm tired of seeing them. And I just said to myself, everybody is right, but do I agree with it? It's simple. Like, because if somebody says this was their
I'm stealing
experience,
that, just so you know.
why am I beefing with their experience? That's your experience. That happened to you. That's real. That's right. And that's how that's what comes from it. Do I agree with it? Do I want to participate in it? No.
Yeah.
And I think I love that, by the way.
It's totally taking it.
love
So if
that.
you see it in my caption, you see,
Have
I'm
at
going
it.
to credit you for it, but I'm taking that.
Yeah, and but I think the issue is, like you said, is the I don't agree with it part is so important, because I think as Rhonda was talking, I was thinking in my head, like, I think the issue is that people are choosing people and trying to force them to be the thing that they want them to be, versus finding somebody who has all the things that they want in somebody. And because I've talked to so many people, it's like, oh, this man isn't doing this or this woman isn't doing this. And it's like, why are you trying to force them to be something that they're not, if they're not that person, if that's not who they are, if they say their values aren't those things, just because she looks good or he looks good or he has this or he has that, why are you trying to force them to be the thing that they're not? So it's not necessarily that there's anything wrong with them. It's just they're not aligned with you and your values, and that's okay. And I think that that's something that we have to really come to grips with, is that it's okay to not be aligned with people.
Right.
To quote Bashea Williams, you're right. I just don't agree.
Yeah. That's it.
I'm using it already. Just that quickly. Just that quickly.
It's that simple.
I love that. Yeah, man, I love that.
Yeah, we are like really stuck. Like that is so like, phew, I love an aha moment.
It's just because
That was
people,
very much an aha
it's just,
moment for me.
unfortunately, it's like that's why I gave all of these, like, hey, remember this and that, like all these disclaimers, because I think in order to have these conversations, you have to put everything out there. It's impossible to see the whole picture of something if you're not looking at it from every perspective, because it's just going to be limited. You have to see the perspective from over there to truly understand the 360 view of whatever problem that we're dealing with. But there is this culture of people being so sensitive, and it's kind of difficult. It's great that you have that mindset, because it's kind of like, I don't care type mindset. Like, I don't care. Because,
yeah, I mean, what do you like it? I love it. That's it's the modified version of you like it. I love it. Thinking about, going back to trying to get into the mind of a man, is there a theme that you see, whether it's amongst your conversations with your fellas, like that, your 30-minute, calls, or even your male clients? Is there a theme that you notice that they all find, specifically single men, that makes you, or formulates advice to give to women on things that we can do better? Like consistently you're finding that the single guys that you're talking to are running into this same issue, and it's something that we can take from and take that gem and say we could do better as single women who are engaging with these men.
Just ask them what they need. I think sometimes we try to predict it, and that might not be it.
Yeah.
But I don't, and y'all got to forgive me, I don't really give women advice.
Yeah, that's okay.
And because if I give you an advice, you apply it to this man, it doesn't work, then what happens? So I kind of work with the men. Now, if we're a couple, like if I'm seeing a couple, I can kind of work that out because I'm working on that specific relationship.
Got it.
But the common theme I see with men is access. A lot of men have access and don't know what to do with it. So that's access to women, access to money, access to freedom of time, different things, and they don't know how to manage it. And there's also been some emotional neglect that we were taught growing up. Right. I don't know how to really handle my emotions. So when I see a woman present their emotions, I don't know how to respond to it. Or I'm told that I have to be at a certain place before I can get into a relationship. So this whole time I've been ignoring the opportunities for a relationship. And now I've been successful in business and life or whatever that is. And now I'm supposed to navigate this relationship that I've been ignoring for so many years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we don't give ourselves an opportunity to really embrace and adopt and just manage emotions early and understand them.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, first thing you said is ask him. And I think the second part of that is believe him when he tells you. Because sometimes you tell somebody something and they're like, nah, that ain't it. Go again. Like, it's like, no, I'm trying to tell you, like, you got to believe me when I'm actually saying it. But yeah,
I've been guilty of that as a woman. Like, ask you what you want or what you think, and then tell you that is not what you want or what you think. And it is not okay to do that.
And even if it's the wrong thing that the man chooses, he still has to take responsibility. And if you think, oh, that's not really what it is, but still believe him and go through the process and let him find out that's not what they need, and let him come back to you and say, you know what, you're right.
Yeah.
As opposed to the conflict. Now we're you don't believe me, you're not trusting me, and now I'm going to force my way through this, and we're going to be disconnected regardless because you just didn't listen to me.
Yeah. Now we're fighting about not listening to each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And the second thing you said I thought was great too, when you say you don't give women advice. Because I think
I'm curious as to why, but
I started to think about that more, because I'm like, I can't necessarily tell a woman how to get a man because I'm not a woman that's gotten a man before. You know what I mean? Like, and I like your books as a reference for women, but a guide for a man. Like, because like my wife would be somebody better to talk to if you're trying to, as a woman, figure out like what things could I do when I have my perspective, but she puts up with me and has dated men her entire life, so she could have a different insight on how to deal with certain things. You know, maybe playing to a man's pride or ego in ways that I don't even know she does, because she hid it so well for me. Like she might, like, I don't know. So I love, that. I love that you said that. But one of the things too that I think is big that you said is that, because I think for men, which I talk to a lot of men, is that from an early age, men are told what's wrong. The world tells you what's wrong with you and what your value is. And we feel like as men, it's like if what is a man? I remember I asked you that. You said, does a man have to provide in a relationship? And I asked Rhonda, I was like, what does a man in a relationship not providing look like? And it was just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, so as a man, you feel like your value is tied to sometimes what you can provide and what you do for a career. And you feel like, oh, if I drive a beat up Honda Civic and, you know, I'm in between things trying to figure it out, then I don't have any value to any woman out there. So it's like, I'll shut off relationships or the opportunity to get into something because I feel like from what the world is telling me, I'm not in a position to be a husband, a boyfriend, or anything for somebody. And one thing I realize is that, shoot, you meet the right woman, you all can come together and they can help bring you along into being the man that you're all three trying to be. But that's like the fact that you said that, I was like, yeah, so many men do shut that down, like in an early standpoint of where they are with things because they're in fear of like, I'm not ready yet. Like I can't take you to these places and fly to these places. And I think that's the effect of social media too.
Yeah, I was in one of those relationships where a woman made more than me, and her thought process was she was going to be the breadwinner. I was on my trajectory to success, but she didn't really understand the social work field. So she thought that, she was like, I can't date you because you're not going to be, like, I can't be paying for all the trips. I can't be doing all this. I can't be doing. I was like, whoever asked you to?
Yeah, who said that?
Who thought that you were going to do that? And I remember we went to Ruth Chris, and she was like, see, this is an expensive restaurant. I don't know if you can take me. And I kind of shrugged it off in that time. And I used to wait so long to end relationships. I should have walked out then.
Yeah, that should have been the end of the last chicken
Like,
stuffed chicken breast that you
last
had.
lobster
with
mac
her.
and cheese you got by, baby.
But what was dope about it is I knew a personal chef, and we set up a cooking class at her place where we cooked the same exact meal. So that was an experience versus you just dropping
Couple $100 on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you know how to cook the thing that you always get from Ruth Chris, and it had the whole menu and everything. It was dope. It was the candles and all of that.
Yeah.
But she still didn't see the value in that. And then, but I also had to check myself. Was like, why am I entertaining this relationship?
Yeah. Because that is, an abusive might feel like a strong word, but I think that is abusive to be with someone and then every chance you get, you remind them as to why they don't qualify. But somehow you're still there. You're still with them. So it's kind of like, are you just keeping me here to keep your foot on me, to punch down on me, if you will, about what I can't do? Because again, like you said earlier, to quote Bashea Williams, you're right. I don't agree with you though, in the sense that if this doesn't work for you, then why am I around? And it takes learning. Like you said, you had to really learn how to end relationships quickly when someone is not being kind to you or being abusive or manipulative, whatever those words are. That's just a really stinky thing that she would do. And what you did almost to, I don't want to say to impress in one way, but also to prove.
Yeah, I used to I had a lot of petty moments at the end when I get to a certain. It's the last thing
That's
I did.
Honest.
The last thing I did before I ended it is I took her to my mentor's house, who is a social worker. He's a millionaire social worker. I took her there, and he said he wanted to meet with me and tell me what he wanted me to do to kind of take over the practice. So I just took her there, and he was just like, yeah, so once you get this, man, like 2 years, then I want to give you half of the practice. And so she saw it, and at that time she changed, and I was like,
I'm good.
yeah.
I'm good, love. Enjoy.
So that was, that was a petty moment, but
I ain't upset about that.
I'm not either. I mean, I like petty. I like a little petty.
Yeah.
But that goes back to what I was saying, the healthy expectation of what relationships are, because so many relationships that I've seen over 10 years or 20 years, or people that I talk to, even mine, I've been married for 3 but together for 7, that balance of supporting each other through certain seasons happens all the time. Like when I first met my wife, I was like, move in with me while you figure stuff out. We started the business based off of her skill set. I was figuring stuff out, and now it's like a thing that we both are supporting each other, and it's kind of like, all right, now I'm here, I hold it down while you get here. All right, now you here, you hold it down while I get here. And it's like slowly building on top of each other to be able to help grow and sustain, because we all enjoy the fruits of whatever we all are doing. So it's just,
if we're doing it right with the right person.
Yeah, with the right person. Like, we're all benefiting from it. Like, I tell my wife, like, even when I got the job at Urban One and running the whole podcast division, I was like, this is your position too. Like, I would not be here if it weren't for you. You enjoy all the benefits of it and everything, because this is us. Like, I wouldn't be here without everything you've done for me. And she feels the same way, vice versa. It's like, you enjoy this success with me because you are part of this success.
Right.
But you have to be supportive of that person during that season. And that's something that we had to deal with early, that whole fair thing, the fair word. Oh my gosh, the whole 50-50, like everything down the middle. It's like, I realized early, there's a lot of things in my relationship I realized early that he had already talked about. I realized that being right don't mean a lot. I realized that very early. But also that that balance isn't 50-50 every single action, every single thing you do at every point in a relationship. It's 80-20 sometimes, it's 70-30, it's, 60-40. And then also, why am I making you do something that you're not good at for the sake of calling it 50-50 when I'm better at that thing than you?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
I recently talked about that, and I said relationships are 50-50, and I said, but we're measuring the wrong things. So you started getting to the weeds of it, right? You started getting to the different tangible things, but I'm bringing myself, right? And you're bringing yourself. And we're making one relationship. So two people are making one relationship. So I'm bringing all of me, 100%. But it's 50. It's half of half of the relationship. And we can figure out the other part. So we start to calculate money, 50-50. What happens if somebody's making more than another person? Like, I moved into my wife's house.
Something most men would be like,
I struggle for.
I was about to say, how'd you had to struggle with that? Like,
so I was successful. I was planning. I had told my son, again, my wilderness year, I told my son in 2020, I'm going to go buy a house. So I had to wait the 2 years for the business to produce. When you start a business, you got to produce 2 tax years or whatever that is. I had saved up $75,000 I was going to put down. I was ready to go. I was working with a realtor. And I met my wife, and we started dating, and she had a house, a new house. And I had to make a decision. I was even at one point, I was like, there's a house that's on sale right across for $750. Let's go get that because I'm not moving into your house. Right? I had to check my ego. It wouldn't have made sense. It wouldn't have made sense. She had a 4-bedroom house.
Yeah.
And it was just her, and her daughter was away at college. How much sense would that make?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now I have $75,000 chilling that was just for the house. So now I invested that into her house. Finished basement, blah, blah. And then she said, it's our house and it's our home.
Yeah, I heard her that she said, you made our house, my house, our home.
Yeah.
That's it. That is, it goes back to the very first thing that you said about the whole, well, do you eat? It's like, we need a shelter.
Right.
We need a place to live. If we focus more on that we need shelter, we would care less about, well, whose house is it? Who purchased? Because ultimately, if you're going to get married, it's yours together.
Yeah.
It is truly your home. So it's really more about, again, checking that ego, but also working together. That is just a theme of like everything that you say. It comes back around to, we're doing this for the greater good of us. I have to take me out of it. You have to take you out of it as much as we can, because our default setting is self.
Right.
But if we take self away more and more and more, we will get to the us thing, and we'll do it in a joyous way, because ultimately we get what we want. We get to eat, we get shelter. Who did it, how we got it, where it came from, winds up becoming way less relevant, because when you come in that house, you're here and we have a comfortable place to live. And that's all that really, really matters.
And it's important to create an environment of safety, right? And I learned what safety looks like. I knew that she would never, ever throw that in my face. And that's important.
That's so important.
Because I'm not going to ignore that part. We had many conversations, even when we had dysfunctional or arguments or whatever that was. she never did that.
Yeah.
Right. And so that created a safe environment.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw her gossip about anybody other than me or about me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was safe.
Yeah.
So I can share these things with you because I never heard you talk bad about other people. So we're constantly getting data from people, even when we're not talking to them, when we're just watching them.
Yeah,
man, that's huge.
Ladies, get that, please. Like, please get that you had that confidence that she would not throw it in your face. Because I do think sometimes, and I'm being, I be hard on us sometimes because I can and do give advice to women as a woman. We get so prideful over the things that we possess, and we work very hard for them. We all do that, but women in particular, because we didn't always have the access to it, it feels more significant for us. And so when we think it's threatened, we think it's challenged, that is a very easy default.
Right.
This is mine. I did this. You came into my situation. And that is, to me, it's abusive behavior to use that language. And to me, it's language that you can't come back from. It's very, because I think probably the first time if she would have ever said it, you would have been like, yep. Done.
Yeah.
Packing this on up. We're done. Maybe the relationship's not over, but I'm not living in here.
Right.
We're done. Yeah.
Exactly.
And we always talk about that's why cliches stay around for such a long time. It's like pride comes before the fall. It's like that's real. Like, and I mean, I can't. One thing in my relationship that helped me was that once you put pride aside, you realize how insignificant a lot of this crap is. Like, it's just not that deep at all. It's just your mentality of pride and ego will make you think it's a lot bigger than what it is. And I think, like you said, it's on both sides to where we just have to kind of put that aside. I think about times in my relationship to where it came with like things with the business that we were doing together, and it's like, nah, I need to do this, I need to do that, or when it comes to purchasing this, like I need to do this, or I need to do that, and then it's like you just making it way harder on yourself. 9 times out of 10, you're doing something that you ain't even better at in the relationship because society is telling you that you need to be the one to do it when that ain't what you're skilled at. Your wife 10 times better than you at that. Let her do it. Like, but I think that goes into leaning into the us part of the relationship and not the selfish nature that we have sometimes that you were talking about. It's like we lean into just the relationship and see the relationship as you and me, and whatever we're contributing, putting into it, getting out of it is for the betterment of you and me. And also the huge part you said is not holding that over somebody's head when they are making that decision and choosing to give something off to you that they know that it's tough for them to hand over or to relinquish, not holding that over their head. Like, all that matters. And if you can get to that point, which I feel like my wife and I are at that stage in our relationship, like things are much easier, much better. We argue way less. It's just like, yeah, it's cool. Like, you do that. Yep. You good at that. I do that. No matter what's happening, it's all contributing to us.
Right. Less competitions in relationships are healthier the relationships, right? If we're competing for no reason, like there's healthy competition.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm not competing with my ego. I'm not competing who does the most and who does the least. I'm not pointing that out. I'm just happy that I didn't have to do that today. Like,
and the other day she's very happy that she didn't have to do it.
Yeah. We got some cleaning people. I ordered some cleaning people. That's why she's not here, because I had some people come to clean the house. She loves cleaning the house. I was like, babe, take a break. Like, let these people come in. I also messed up my office too, so I wasn't. But it's just like these things that how can we make life easier for each other? That's the goal. What can I take off your plate?
Lord,
I struggled with that, man, at first, because I was an athlete all my life, right? And I try to explain to people like the mentality that comes with that. And I'm like, one of the best examples is the whole being injured and playing thing. Like, when I was playing football, it was like, yo, if you on the field, I don't want to hear all this hurts, that hurts, my ankle. If you injured, sit on the sideline. If you playing, I don't want to hear nothing. So for me, I didn't complain in my relationship. Didn't talk about any issues, didn't talk about any problems, because mentally I'm like, if I'm in it, figure it out, don't complain, make it make sense. And, be the person who provides the solution, not the person seeking help and ask my wife, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? But what I realized is, first, I shut off all the opportunity for her to help me, right? When it came to things in my relationship. But then I also created a perfection complex in my relationship to where she thought nothing was wrong with me. And she thought that I didn't have any issues. So the moment I did something that's a normal mistake in a relationship, then all hell broke loose and everything's falling down because I gave off this perception that I never had any issues or I'd never had any problems. And I had to realize like, oh, I need to communicate when things are wrong. I need to accept help when somebody's like, I will help you. I will go get it. I was the person that even if I'm sick, I'm like, yo, I'm going to get up in my little hoodie, go to the, drugstore, get me my medicine. She's like, yo, I got you, man. Like, sit down.
Yeah.
I got you. Like, and it took me a while to accept that. Like,
is there a clinical explanation for what that is? Like Dre called it the perfection complex. Is there a psychological explanation for what that is, or a term that's called?
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is. I couldn't come up with it right now.
Okay.
It's Saturday.
It's okay.
But it's what's interesting because I learned that a long time ago, the difference between complaining, expressing, and just talking about something that's not right. Like, it's not a complaint. It's literally talking about something that doesn't feel good. Like, because I played ball too, right? And if we broke my ankle, tape it up, finish the game, your adrenaline is still going, like, we still out here. But we also told our teammate, yo, that's not work. Like, you out of position, right? We also talked to the refs if they fouled us.
Yeah,
the ref, he fouled me. That's the truth, right? So you get into relationships, it's the same thing. This doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
What you did made me feel this way. Simple. It's simple. We overcomplicate it
Every time.
What Lauryn Hill say?
We could all be so simple.
Or you rather make it hard.
Yeah.
So I have a selfish question just because I want to be right. And so I'm being honest as not my therapist today, but pseudo.
You know you're not supposed to go to therapist to be right. You know that?
I know. This is why I'm giving this whole disclaimer before I ask it. I said, I think on my social media page that if I see a couple and like they're together, they're physically in the same space and they aren't like physically affectionate while in that space, they're not touching each other, they're not holding hands, that I feel like something's off in the relationship. And when I watch you and your wife together, you all are very much like that. You're very touchy-feely, all often locked together, or her hand is on your knee or your hand is on her arm. And where I want to be right is that I believe that there's some sort of, I don't know what the science is behind why some couples are like that, and why I think that means they really like each other. They're really, really into each other. Where other couples are still together, but they don't look together. If you looked at them across the room, they don't appear to really like each other. Is that an indicator that something is off, possibly?
No, it can't. I mean, it just really depends. I mean, sometimes when you see us together, we might have just got out of an argument, got out of the car and decided to show up for the camera.
Okay. Yeah.
So it happens.
Yeah.
Right.
It could all be smoke and mirrors.
Right. Sometimes we're so like me, if I have a long day of a client, I'm not really emotionally connected to anything. And we talked about that. And it's hard for me to, if I don't kind of like process the day and have my moment alone, I can't jump into being affectionate because my mind is still processing and trying to release everything. Right. If I had clients this morning, I jumped here, I would be a totally different person.
Got it.
Shoulders would be up. I would be, so probably clinical terms.
Yeah.
But I did a shift. I slept in. And so now if my wife is here, we probably would be close together because I'm more relaxed.
Yeah.
So it's not always an indication. And some people also love languages, and which is something that was just made up, by the way.
To help people process.
To understand parts of themselves. Some couples, that's just not their thing.
Yeah.
Public affection is not their thing. And they both don't rely on that.
Yeah.
But they have a very good, healthy relationship.
Okay.
Some people use their vices like games while they're in the same places, or but they have a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They communicated
so
about that.
It's
you're wrong and right.
I dealt with that, so I know that it's first, like you said, the anxiety around public displays of affection. Like some people have that, like, and it's rooted in childhood things. Like I talked about on the show plenty of times. Like I didn't like to hold my wife's hand. I'll put my arm around her. I'll do all that stuff, but holding hands to me felt like childish. It felt like, I don't know where that came from. And it took time because she didn't understand it, because her love language was physical touch. And as we know, the physical touch thing isn't just sex, it's hand on the leg. Like, and she didn't understand it, but I didn't understand it either. I was like, that's what I talk about relationships in the mirror. It's like, I didn't know that this was even a thing. And I don't even know why I don't like to do it. Maybe I need to think about that and look into like why I don't like to hold hands. And now I'm in a better place. And over time, we've dealt with certain things. And, you know, I feel like I'm really affectionate, you know, publicly. But that was something I think I had a little bit of anxiety about, but not necessarily didn't mean anything of how I felt towards like my wife or anything.
Or
like
wasn't
that.
necessarily a reflection of the health of the relationship.
Yeah, of the health of the relationship.
So I think about my marriage, right? My wife, who's newly diagnosed with ADHD, right? So if she has her hand on me and she removes it, I'm thinking like something is wrong, like what's happening.
Yeah.
But she's fidgety, so she might not be able to stay in the same space for a lot of times. We're holding hands, she moves her hand, she's thinking about something else. So that I had to not see that as rejection.
Yeah.
So if I didn't have those conversations, didn't understand my wife, right, I think that she doesn't like holding my hand.
Yeah.
So I created this whole story that I'm telling
Whole
myself,
narrative,
and now I'm neglecting my opportunity to have my hand held, right? I'm neglecting my opportunity to be close, to understand, and also to share, hey, I want to hold your hand.
Yeah.
So we create narrative stories, childhood traumas, childhood experiences, generational patterns. Those things play a part in all of our relationships.
From the smallest things to the biggest things, it all impacts.
That's one of my daily affirmations: is don't make up problems happen
Yeah.
that don't exist. Like, because we do that so much, we stress ourselves out for things that aren't even a thing. Like,
Real problem.
I was talking to my wife the other day. She was like, "I ordered this thing, and what if it doesn't come before our trip? Because it might." And I was like,
Why are you doing
It's
all
not even
that?
a problem. Like, you stressing about something that didn't happen yet. It says it's going to arrive when it's supposed to happen, but you creating this whole thing for yourself that it doesn't even exist yet.
Yeah.
But I want to switch gears a little bit, because this is something I want to hear you talk about and discuss a little bit, because in one of your previous interviews, you talked about the emotional mistress. And I think that that's such a powerful thing. Can you explain to our audience like what that is and how it can impact relationships?
Yeah, so it's the emotional mistress and emotional manstress.
Okay.
Because a lot of times we only focus on the mistress, but the same thing happens when women have infidelity and have connections emotionally to a man outside of their relationship.
Yeah.
Essentially, the emotional mistress and manstress are the people who we rely on because we don't have a connection, emotional connection, or there's a void with our partners. So we start to share with them some of our vulnerable moments because they're safe, right? Our partners aren't safe. So we start to develop, we have conversations, start to develop a stronger connection, a more healthy relationship on the outside, because you're not really experiencing me on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You're not disappointing me. You provide a level of calmness. You provide a shiny light when it's dark at home.
Yeah.
So I start to get close to you and trust you more than my own relationship. And then you fall into other categories of relationship. You start to physically get connected. You start to get further and further away from your marriage or your relationship and be more connected with that person. And then just leads to more unhealthy dynamics within that relationship.
Who is most, I guess, exposed to leaning into getting into these emotional situations? Like, what type of dynamics are likely happening in their homes for them to find, I guess, joy or pleasure, or just to go and pursue this emotional relationship?
The people who don't know how to effectively communicate.
Yeah.
Either giving or receiving.
Yeah.
Which is a huge part, receiving.
Yeah.
And one of the things is when I said that, I said the emotional mistress or manstress is helping sustain marriages. Everybody was like, what? That's crazy.
Not crazy at all.
If we look at the definition of sustain, it's just prolong. That's it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
If, and it was funny because a week later, a guy came out. He said that he's been in a marriage for like 7 years, and for a year, him and his wife weren't having sex. And he kept asking. She kept coming up with these excuses. She kept saying, no, she doesn't feel good. She has a headache. Right. She was dealing with some stuff, and she wasn't able to articulate it. He didn't really understand it. So he started to cheat. And the arguments stopped happening in the marriage.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't need it need it anymore.
Because the argument was around sex.
Yeah.
So now he's getting it from somewhere else. He goes there and he comes home. He feels like everything is happy. We're good now because our argument is taken care of outside of the marriage. He's sustaining an unhealthy marriage by cheating. We're not addressing the real issue of why there's a lack of intimacy within that marriage.
Yeah.
And you feel like it's because maybe the space within a relationship isn't safe enough to have the conversation. Maybe that she didn't feel comfortable expressing why she didn't want to.
I didn't know all the details of that, but they didn't have somebody to help them process and navigate what's really happening within their marriage.
Yeah. And I think there's just a theme in people, regardless of what the relationship dynamic is, there's a theme in people of just really running from harder conversations. We'll use the words like, I'm non-confrontational. Well, it doesn't have to be classified as a confrontation. It's a conversation, which is talking. Like you said, a complaint and expressing that something that doesn't make you feel good are two different things. But I think we just in general run from that, even at work. Think about how many times most of us have been wronged in the workplace, but we don't say anything. We just, because we are scared to have that tough conversation, because what if I lose my job? Or in a friendship, your friend is doing something, they're pissing you off, or they're making jokes that you really don't find funny, but you just keep laughing because you don't want to be confrontational. So naturally you then get in relationships, you do the exact same thing. Things are not right. And you're like, I don't. And imagine in that situation where you said she was dealing with some things. So he might have felt like, for me to keep pressing it, when I know she's dealing with some things, it's like, I don't want to seem insensitive to what she may have going on. And so I do think it is a skill that you truly have to learn. And most of us have to get help to learn it. I know that I had to get help to learn how to do that and do it with ease and comfort. Where now most people might think, you can come to a difficult conversation very easily. Well, it wasn't easy before. It took a lot of work for me to get to that place to be able to say the sandwich methods, all the different methods, the taking a walk and walking in the same direction, choosing a conversation when they're in a better space. I had to learn a lot of things around how to confront difficult moments. And so I'm not surprised at all that people struggle deeply with doing that in relationships, because they do it in all the relationships leading up to a marriage. Yeah, they do it everywhere.
It's all communication, man. That's what it comes down to. That if people understood each other better and what they were communicating and what they were feeling, then I think we'll be in a lot better situation when it comes to all relationships. And that's, I think, the biggest improvement, or the best improvement that I've had in my relationship, is when we got better at communicating with each other. Because we love each other. We care about each other. We want the best for each other. We just had to figure out how to understand each other and hear each other as well. Like you said, listening is a part of that too. Is like, when do I communicate to her? What's the best time? I realize everything isn't a right now type of thing. I also realize that if you request something of somebody, sometimes you gotta wait a little bit. Like, if they've been programmed their whole life to do something, if you say it one time, they're not just gonna switch that programming in a day. Like, I can't, if I bring it up once, she may do it again, she may do it again, she may do it again, or I may do it again. But bringing that intensity every single time is just counterproductive in my opinion, because it's like, it's going to take me time anyways. Like, I appreciate the reminders, but now I feel like you're nagging me versus like giving me the time to correct.
To grow.
And then when I do the right thing, you don't even acknowledge it because you're like, that's what you're supposed to have been doing. And it's like, that's something I struggle with. That's something I struggle with. Like, you should, because I dealt with that so much, and me and my wife had to learn that. It's because just because something's easy for you doesn't mean it's easy for the other person. Right. And you have to acknowledge when they do something that they struggle with, even if it's simple, putting the dishes away, putting this there, doing something that they told you that they would do, because they always forget most of the time and they never write it down. It's like you have to acknowledge that, oh yeah, I see you, like I see you making improvements. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Because when I've gotten the response sometimes like, I mean, that's what you're supposed to be doing anyways, it shuts me down. I'm like, well, you know what, then what's the point? You know, and I shut down. So it's like that all that goes into just communication. And I think do you find when you're in your sessions that that's mainly the thing that you're working on when it comes to it most of the time is just how do you communicate with each other?
Comprehension and communication.
Yeah. What are you feeling? How did that make you feel? Like we talk about if somebody's not doing something for you. When you don't do this makes me feel this way. And now we can process your feelings as opposed to talking about the actions. Because we can fix the actions. But let's talk about the feelings behind it, because that's the way you're responding. And I do need appreciation when I do that. Because this was an issue that we talked about when it wasn't done. So let's have the same energy when it was.
I love that, because even when you tell somebody how you feel, once you tell them how you feel and you take away the action, the person may be like, I didn't even know that made you feel that way. And that wasn't my intention to make you feel that way. Now, I might have still intended to do the action, but I didn't know the action made you feel that way. So that's important to communicate that feeling.
And also the difference between intent and impact, right?
Explain
intention. So when somebody says what you did hurt me, it's like, that wasn't my intention.
I didn't mean
take away the impact. And sometimes we sit in the intention so much because we don't want to take ownership and accountability of what we did harm somebody. So you know what? That did do that. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. I should have done it a different way. What's a better way for me to do that? Because the impact is deeper than the intent.
For sure.
So that's why y'all got to get a therapist. This is why y'all need it. You see how it's very simple with the few words and the tone. That's what I appreciate about mental health clinicians, everyone who supports that community, because if you just do the work, you will realize like, yeah, that was so wow. Like it is not as complex as we sometimes again make it out to be. I mean, nail on the head. It's like, I'm sorry. Whether I meant to do it or not, I'm sorry for how I made you feel. I apologize. And then that extra question, because I think that's the one that we all forget. How can I do it better? What's a better way? How would you better receive this? So I don't have to guess. Give me the playbook. I want to know how to run the plays with you y'all don't twist that, not in a manipulative way.
Right.
I need to understand you, because how am I actually going to do life with you if I don't understand the plays?
Right.
How can you really be a successful athlete or anything if you don't know how to do it? You have to learn how to do it. It's so simple. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I want to know what you have going on, what you and your wife have going on, because I know you have conferences and you do different sessions. Talk about your platform, talk about the work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, so we are working on, in 2026, we're going to have a retreat for couples. Once we iron out everything, we'll let y'all know. But in the meantime, I'm doing Valentine's Day weekend experience, love experience with Mac. Talk to Mac. I probably should have him on here. He's amazing. He's a therapist. And we did a tour this year. We did New York, we did DC, we did Nashville, and we're going to do Houston. And so we just work with like 10 to 15 couples and just helping them really navigate. It's 3 years of therapy, couples therapy in 3 hours. That's one of the things that we're doing. Black Marriage Week we just did. We'll do that again next year. I still have the book Dear Future Wife, A Man's Guide and a Woman's Reference to Healthy Relationships. I have my father's journal. A lot of us fathers are really struggling in fatherhood or just trying to really understand our roles and processing it. It's a father's journal out there. You can get on Amazon, on my website. It's a lot of different things going on. My wife is about to speak in Dubai at the end of the month, a women's conference.
I love it out there.
I'm getting flued out. So
get flued out.
That'll be cool.
That's a flu.
Do you know who she's working with out there?
I can't think of it. I'm not really good with names.
If it's a woman named Sarah?
No, it is Suzette. Suzette is the lady that runs it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
What?
Who is she working with?
No, I know, because Sarah is a Black woman. She's from here, but she does a lot of work. I've been out there 2 times working with her, and she does a lot of work out there. And her and your wife are in like the same field, so they probably know each other. But I just wonder.
Probably.
Yeah.
What else? Just conferences coming up. There's a men's conference. I'm being honored at. It was pretty amazing. I'm glad myself, Kiera Gaines, and another doctor, clinician.
We got to get Mac and Kiera on here. They're on the list. So you put in a good word for us.
We just gonna send them this clip.
Yeah. Hey, look, come on.
Yeah.
Are you personally accepting clients right now or no?
I just hired 2 people. I'm trying to sort that out. Once I get them settled, I will do that. But I just hired another man, and I also hired a marriage and family therapist.
Okay.
And I have other clinicians that are available that I supervise. So you have some of them and you have some of me, because I supervise and I consult on some of the cases. But I can definitely see who I would take. I'm very specific on who I take at these days. Yeah. But I did want to go back really quick, because one thing I want to say is that the brain process is a 5 to 1. When you say 5 to 1, for every criticism, there needs to be 5 different things that we appreciate about the person. That's how we process those things. So if I hear a criticism and I don't hear any appreciation, I don't hear any acknowledgement of the good things that I'm doing, then the brain is going to deteriorate and disconnect from who that other person is talking to you and what they give you.
That is,
because that's unsafe, right?
And it's called
5 to 1.
5 to 1.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes so much sense. That makes
so is it
sense.
Practically, if I'm criticizing or delivering criticism to my partner, is it that, famous sandwich method? Is that the thing that we should be using? Or like, what does that look like to have the criticism but then follow with the appreciation? Like, what could that practically look like?
So it can be within that conversation, but typically just in general, we need to be acknowledging our partners.
Got you.
Right. What did you do today? Today, when you did this made me feel so good. I was thinking about the other thing you did that day, and that just made me feel good. So now I'm acknowledging, I'm appreciating my partner. Yeah. That's how we get into absolutes. You never tell me this. You always do this, and then we're disputing absolutes. Yeah, because we don't hear enough of the good things about each other.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
It does.
Because that's, again, the emotional mistress and manstress, because we hear from them. Oh, you look nice today.
You're hearing 5 to 0, basically.
Yeah, right.
You hear nonstop good stuff.
Because how destructive the criticisms can be is all dependent on how you show up on a daily basis. It's like every day we're building the bridge, let's say, of our relationship, or the home of our relationship, and that's showing up consistently every single day. But when a storm comes, how we're able to withstand the storm will be based on every day how we were building our relationship home. If you weren't being responsive, if you were always being critical, if you never showed appreciation, then when that one thing happens, everything goes to hell, because on a daily basis we were never reinforcing those things. That's why I see people who a sock is on the floor and the relationship blow up off of a sock on the floor, and it's like, it ain't even that deep, but
nothing to do with that.
This built up. I, like you said, people who non-confrontational, they just explosive confrontation people.
Oh yeah,
they just wait. I like one thing you said. I was like, yo, that's deep. You said some men wait to. You said some men, the time they wait to speak is to yell, or something like that.
Yeah. We don't speak until it's time to yell.
Yeah, that's deep. You hold it in, you hold it in, you hold it in.
Shaking up soda is all
it's just like boom. And it's like, and so many people like, I had no idea this was going on. Where did this come from?
Over the sock? Like, who knew it was going to be
every time? You tell me you're going to do something, you don't do it. And it's like, just because of this,
no way this is what we're talking about.
Like, good Lord.
Yep, that's it.
Don't keep it in, people.
Don't keep it in. Release it. Well, we are going to definitely share all your information on the episode. So y'all, please tap in with Bashea. Brilliant mind, as you can see. And we need to absolutely continue to uplift and support those that are doing this work, because you
sure.
are doing
Thank you.
work that is truly God's work, the work that we need, especially in our community, in the Black community, and most specifically with our Black men. So thank you. I'm giving you your flowers
Thank
right
you. I
now for
appreciate
the
that.
work that
Sure.
you're doing specifically with young Black boys and Black men. And we really hope y'all enjoyed this episode, because I know I did. And we're glad to have him back, because I got clearly lots of questions for the professional men in this space. So so thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We'll
Thank
see
y'all
y'all
for having
next
me.
time.
Peace.